What we call the current energy crisis did not start with the war in Ukraine, but it started before, actually due to the tensions between supply and demand for natural gas, due to the strong economic recovery after COVID. So this was the first basically driver for price increase. Of course, all of this then was exacerbated with the tensions due to the war in Ukraine, Russia representing 40% of total gas imports in Europe so far. So this was a huge blow and huge pressure for European security of supply. And the main impact we have seen in Europe due to the energy crisis was the rapid surge in prices, especially wholesale market prices. For natural gas, they went as high as 250 euros per megawatt hour in August 22. This is about 10 times the historic average on wholesale market price. We also saw that there's huge geopolitical impacts due to our dependency on fossil fuels and on energy imports. We're still financing this Russian war effort, basically. We just have to consider that the European natural gas import bill tripled last year to reach up to 400 billion euros. So this is kind of really huge economic and also social impacts as well. And obviously, our first reaction was to say, okay, this crisis basically, what it does is mainly that it shows quite painfully the consequences of our very long-lasting dependency on fossil fuels in Europe and also elsewhere in the world. And this would mean, obviously, that the crisis should be a very strong accelerator for the energy transition and for everything going with climate policies and energy policies, etc. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. And what we have observed in most of the countries is that the initial reactions, the initial policy reaction, mostly focused on crisis relief, meaning addressing the economic and social urgencies related to the very quick surge in prices, without necessarily increasing or accelerating the transition in parallel. Just to give you a small illustration, or quite an impressive one actually, the International Energy Agency stated public subsidies for fossil fuels, for natural gas, petrol products, and coal, basically, have doubled worldwide in 2022, reaching more than $1 trillion. So that's the big elephant in the room. We could talk about investing in the transition as long as we want. We could talk about carbon pricing, but here it is. We're still worldwide, we're spending $1,000 billion on subsidies for fossil fuels. So that's huge amounts of money. And the actual issue was that compared to this, we did not get one additional euro to invest in the energy transition. We had actually no real reinforcement of support policies, of subsidies going into energy efficiency in buildings, into electric vehicles, into deployment of renewable energies. So that's kind of the problem that we have currently, that the crisis actually shows us how important this energy transition actually is to become more resilient to future crises. But when facing the crisis, it's not the easiest moment to actually react and accelerate, because we're not having the money currently. And this is basically the case for all of the actors, for households, for companies. They all have to face higher bills. So they have quite a hard time to engage additional investments. I had calculated last year that if France had achieved the targets for energy efficiency in buildings that it had defined in 2008 with the Grenelle Summit for 2020, it would actually no longer have been dependent on Russian gas since 2020. So if we just had achieved our targets on building renovations, we wouldn't have had such a crisis in France, for example. So that's, of course, a huge priority, consuming less energy, consuming cleaner energy, and basically just getting rid of fossil fuels as fast as we can.